In an effort to inform the community, St. Tammany Parish Council called a meeting this evening to hear about changes that have been made in the library system.
David Jones was at that meeting and joins us now from Mandeville with more from the Director of Libraries.
Megan Lee, look, some parish council members gathered tonight to hear of the changes that have been implemented in the past 2 years in St. Tammany Parish libraries. Those changes came in response to concerns raised by people regarding some specific material and whether or not that material would be accessible to children. Now, this meeting was supposed to be centered on two groups, each with opposing ideologies, basically presenting on how they feel the St. Tammany Parish libraries, policies, procedures, and practices have been implemented. But one group, the St. Tammany Library Accountability Project, a small but vocal group of conservative activists, didn't show. Instead, parish council members first heard a short presentation from the St. Tammany Library Alliance, a group supporting libraries and the First Amendment, before hearing from Kelly LaRocca, director of St. Tammany Libraries. Now, this all started with criticism when some libraries put up LGBTQ+ pride displays back in June 2022, and it snowballed from there. LaRocca defended the library's mission and showed in detail changes they have made to existing policies and operations to increase transparency with parental rights in focus.
Safety of children in the library has always been a top priority. That's why we enforce the rule that you cannot be in the library under the age of 10 by yourself. You have to be accompanied by a parent. And even then, we have ensured that there are filters on our computers, and we do work out in the stacks to ensure where children are, who they're accompanied by, and what is generally going on in the library.
The Parish Council, meanwhile, is awaiting action on a proposal to remove certain library board members. They're currently in the process of interviewing both current and potential new members. You may be wondering why that is. Well, for more than 20 years, St. Tammany Parish has not been aligned with state law, which requires library board members to serve staggered terms. I'm taking the politics out of it, though. Overall circulation, basically meaning books and other materials that have been checked out of the libraries, is on a steady climb in St. Tammany Parish, nearly 1 million last year. For now, reporting live in Mandeville, David Jones, Fox 8, Local 1.